Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Kamarul Idris bin Kamaruddin. I'm from J4EM1103G. So today I'm going to do sheet metal process. So firstly, what is sheet metal? Sheet metal is a process to form the metal into thin and flat pieces. The fundamental form used is metalworking. The item used is aluminium, brass, copper, steel, tin, nickel and titanium are able to be made into sheet metal. Some example of sheet metal process is car bodies, airplane wing, medical table and also roof for building. So these are the items that we will use to complete this process. So firstly, we need a pencil. Second is scissor or any knife. Third is a tape, but also you can use glue, and the lastly is paper. So now let's begin the process of sheet metal. So the first thing to do is we need to transfer the drawing layout to the sheet metal using a tri-square, steel ruler and scriber. So in this process, I just use a ruler and also a pencil to transfer the drawing layout for the sheet metal process. So now let's begin to draw the layout. So the easiest part to do is for part 2 and part 3. Now let's begin to do the first part. So the first part, the total length for the first part is 420 millimeter. So now first let's take the length for 420 meters. So the total length of this part is 420 millimeter. So now take about 10 millimeter of the part that I just cut. And then the other end. So and then at the edge of each end, take about 10 centimeter here and 10 centimeter here. This one is 10 and this one is 10. Now completed to transfer the length for part 1. Also, don't forget also to separate into 3 parts, which is the first length is 100mm, the second is 200mm, and the third is 100mm. So now, for the first part is 100mm. The second is 200mm, and the third one is 100mm. So now let's move on to part 2 and part 3. So the length for this one is 220mm. So after you mark the length, then you can transfer it. Next, the total length for this one is 120mm. So same as for part 3, the length for these two is 220mm, and for this one is 120mm. So now mark each 10cm at the edge of both parts. So this one is 10mm, and this one also is 10mm, 100mm. Sorry. And then mark also 100mm here. Same as part 3. Same for part 3. So that's all for part 2 and part 3. So for the next part is place the sheet metal on shear cutting machine. So as I don't have the shear cutting machine, I will use my scissor to cut for the sheet metal process. So this for part 1. Now I've done completing to make from a big piece of sheet metal, or in this video I use a paper. I've turned it into 3 parts of sheet metal. So now for the next step is folding process. So now use a folding machine to fold the sheet metal. So in this video I will use a ruler to as my folding machine. So now continue hammering the end side of the sheet metal to get a full fold. Next, combine all the 3 parts and make a mark to do a drill process. So now let's combine it. So after completed, to combine it, make a mark to do a drill process. So after you make a mark on the sheet metal on the place that you want to drill, you can start drilling. But in this video I will not drill my sheet metal, but I will just use a tape so that my sheet metal is glued together. So this is how my sheet metal looks like after I've completed all the process that I need to do. So that's all from me. Thank you.